Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Lana Feng with Huma.AI. Welcome, Suresh.
Thank you for having me.
So, from our experience, right, the industry, it doesn't matter whether you're clinical or medical or commercial, are actively discussing use cases, right? Where
Right.
does generative AI add value for our business? So, in your opinion, right, what are the sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, the use cases you think would benefit companies in the next 6 to 12 months?
There are multiple uses depending upon the industry for us. Essentially, um, let's say you have a repetitive task that any organization or any sub department is doing that. We're trying to see if that can be automated. We are also evaluating the chatbot functionality. The only challenge right now is the data privacy concern or the security concern. That's why we have to take baby step right now. Other than that, we actually have a enterprise wide data and analytics system, which combines a lot of our data, internal and external data. We're trying to put a large language model on top of it so that people can ask question, get their answers instead of asking to the data analysts or report writers to build standardized dashboard. So we are exploring one thing. So we are actually a big Tableau shop, the Tableau
Of
visualization.
course. Yes.
Uh, so yeah, we have been discussing with them. They are actually coming up with their own GPT in partnership with OpenAI, which is going to play nicely with their existing architecture. Similar concept where people can ask question and get insights right on their fingertip instead of asking an IT or a data analyst to build a dashboard. So we are evaluating that, and the good thing they are doing is like they're putting guardrails. Even though they have agreement with OpenAI, they to use their model, they also have agreements to put guardrails where OpenAI cannot use data to train the model or cannot keep history. So that makes us little bit easier to ease those security concerns. So yeah, we're evaluating that, and if everything goes well, we'll expose that to our customers as stakeholders.
That brings me to our next question, right? You mentioned you have your own internal, you're building your internal platform with these capabilities, maybe collaborating with big tech, right? I'm curious if you look at the ecosystem, right? You have pharma, you have your internal innovation group, internal data science team, and IT, right? You have big tech like the Microsoft and the Amazons, right? That we all work with, and then you have these innovative companies like Human AI, right? And how do you see this ecosystem playing into kind of the future of incorporating generative AI? And then also the second part of this question is like really, what is your opinion with like build versus buy? Is it a kind of build and then it's a combo? So love to hear your opinion.
It's a combination of both, which is like a hybrid approach, right? Sometimes depending upon how much resources you have, it's not it's not beneficial from a financial standpoint, or it's not feasible also to build from scratch. So why not use something which has already been built by another vendor who has gone through those testing, making sure it's accurate. Like what Tableau did, right? Instead of building their own language model, they just tap into OpenAI, right?
Right. That's a
So
great example.
yeah, we have to think about the benefits you get by using some of this large vendor, and at the same time maybe have resources internally who can fine tune this model and customize it based on the organization need. I think that's the way to go for most of the companies, rather than making a big investment internally to build the entire team and build from scratch.
That's great. So I'm going to kind of drill down a little deeper in that, right? So as far as, startups, people doing really new things, but then probably does not have the same name recognition or maybe the big tech, right? And how do you see kind of companies like yours kind of approach those? Is it also a hybrid? And then my next question following that is that what is your experience, right, working with startups? Any kind of advice for how to best was working with big pharma in the generative AI space?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on the use case and who is solving that problem, right? There could be a good startup who is actually have a solution that satisfy your need, right? It depends on that, right? I mean, I didn't had a personal experience working with any startup yet, but that's how I feel it. It's all depend upon the use case and then who has a solution for your use case. And as long as it checks all the boxes of data security, privacy concerns. Obviously, you want to have your legal and compliance team review all those things, make sure all those boxes are checked before you engage with them. But for me, it all depends on the use case and then who is solving the problem, with obviously the less investment.
Yeah, great, great. So I'm actually going to move on to another topic that's really kind of near and dear to my heart is that, you have this really cautious um, pharma company, right? Because I came from one. That's because we're dealing with patients, we're saving lives, and then we have, the traditional RFP process and what have you, right? And then now you have generative AI. So how do you kind of, as a innovation leader on the data side, how do you kind of reconcile our traditional business model with like how do you like fast innovate?
So, especially when you have a bigger team, it makes it easier to allocate time and so that they can explore, like you say, explore and fail fast, right? And move on. But then if you have a smaller team, that's where the challenge is getting that bandwidth out from regular stuff and doing innovative stuff is always a challenge. One thing we have been trying to do is like allocate some time on the Fridays or other days to see something what else we could do that's outside our normal workflow. So that's the way we have been keeping it, trying to see what else out there we can learn and do. The other thing I've been asking my team member as well as myself is like go out and reach out to other CDOs, talk to other people to understand what you can learn from them and bring that back to this company.
That's great. That's great. So how does your team take it, right? So from more of a traditional enterprise approach to now like, 2-week agile approach.
Yeah, we have been changing our model to agile for a few years now, because we're a lean and mean team. We have to adopt that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't see that an issue. And with this generative AI, we are always the good thing. I have a great team with me who is always hunger to learn new stuff. So that helps me. So we always look out to learn from others and bring that back.
That's great. That's great. Great tip. So we're gonna move on to kind of the privacy and security responsible AI, right? So what do you kind of think when those challenges when adopting AI technology within the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, so I mean, on a traditional AI side, we have been using that for a quite few years now, right? But most of the things have been designed in house, so we didn't ran into those issues. But when we are evaluating to buy something from outside, we try to see if it can be implemented within a private network or private cloud. Try to protect our data because of all the regulations that this country has. So we definitely evaluate that, especially with generative AI, where things are needs to be very open. We are cautiously taking our step how we can adopt that, and what use case is beneficial um, without impacting the privacy, the data privacy, or any kind of leaking out of the data. Um, our corporate organization in Germany, they actually bought OpenAI model and customize it with all those guardrails in between. So that's one thing we have done. But anything new that when we engage with the vendor, we definitely make sure that everything is checked from a data security standpoint.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned about refining the large language models, right? So, as you know, the all the large language models on the market, including the ones from OpenAI, have hallucination problems, right? So, I'd love to hear your opinion. How do you feel about that? And right, what are your suggestions of approaching that?
Yeah, so for us, it's not a big of a problem right now because we have not been like using that for major use cases within the organization. Like you said, some of this concern, because of some of this concern, we are taking baby steps. So it's more of like asking generic questions, write a letter for me. So those kind of use cases still what is being used from a generative AI standpoint. Um, Before we go far deep into implementing it for other use cases. And that was one of the reason also we are waiting for Tableau to come up with their own large language model and where they will take care of a lot of these concerns so that we don't have to deal with all those things.
I know we wish, right? It's like large language model who are developing those. It's like an arms race, right? You have
Right,
everybody's developing their own large language models, even the startups, right? You're talking about like Hugging Face or Cohere, Anthropic. I mean, they sucking hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, right?
right, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
when it first came to the market, it was more of like let's make a buzz in the market, right? But now once people start using it, questioning the data privacy and data security, everybody is now taking a step back, trying to build those guardrails within the large language model as well. Recently I've been hearing a lot of the companies are coming up with large language model which you can deploy in your cloud environment so that it's protected, and at the same time you get the benefits.
exactly. And also the generative AI space is moving into more of a smaller models, right? Solving specific
Yep,
use cases. Yeah.
yep, yep.
There's so much innovation there. It's very, very exciting to be in this space right now.
For sure. I mean, I cannot agree anymore. Like you said, there are so many things going on generative AI, and it brings such a large value to the entire industry. Um, I would definitely encourage everybody to tap into it and see and find a use case that where they can use it.
Yeah, I have one more question before the sort of the big question overall. So, the not just generative AI, right? AI in general, that pharma company have been complaining about sort of it's a black box, right? That's a one of the major concerns that these AI solutions are black box. And how do you feel about this? How do you think like, we can somehow bring more transparency to these AI solutions?
Yeah, one thing I think that will help is like maybe exposing what the AI is doing a little bit, not going into the technical details, letting them know like what are the variables being used in the model, right? And what is it is trying to predict. And the best thing that has worked for us is like showing the impact, right? Some of the leaders would not care even if it's a back black box. If at all you can show them the impact. Hey, this is what I predicted, and this is what we got as an outcome. And if the outcome is good, then the leaders on the top might not worry about. Okay, I don't want to learn about your black box. You take care of your black box. As long as you're showing me an impact, I'm good with it. So
Yeah. Totally, totally agree. And that's also why we had kind of when we did our thing, we have to provide citations, right? This is kind of along the same line. We have to have
right.
guardrail, we have transparencies. So my last question, I promise, is kind of how do you see the industry, right? You've been talking with your CDO colleagues and having internal discussions, experimentation, right? How do you see like sort of the pharmaceutical industry approach this responsible AI? And what are the challenges? What are the kind of the bright spas like moving forward?
Yeah, like I was saying initially, it has been adapted on the R&D side, trying to reduce the amount of time it takes to bring new drug to the market. It has been adapted on the clinical trial side as well. So a lot of on the life science as well, this has been adapted very well. When it comes to commercial business on the healthcare side, there's still some concerns how to use it in terms of the data and security, making sure all those guardrails are there. So that's why there's always that take a step back and think through, is this going to solve our problem without losing the data integrity or data privacy? So that's always on the table when there is new things that gets built on the AI, trying to hash out all those concerns and move forward. But I have seen like AI or generative AI in general has been largely been used on the R&D side.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is such a great topic, right? AI and generative AI. And it is really, thank you so much for a great discussion, lots of insight. Really appreciate you joining us today, Suresh. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you and sharing my experience.